your name, outlet, and we'll just go in order. Right? And so, any first questions?
This was easy, no questions.
Dylan?
Yeah, so I feel like by far you were the most emotive player when you're up on the stage. After you went down 2-0, you like completely pushed away from the table. How do you pull that back and stay focused?
Man, I've won about 26,000 ladder games on my main account, right? I've probably lost about 22,000. Well, a lot of experience of losing, and tournaments I've lost. You lose way more tournaments than you win, so you're at 0-2. All you can do is like take it one game at a time. I was mad. I mean, I don't want to be 0-2 against Rogue, but you got just. I queued up my comfort pick, which was Rogue Mirror. I'm just gonna be like way better than most people at that matchup. Got him bored, and just one step at a time.
So going into tomorrow, is there anybody that you are either nervous about or excited to face?
I mean, first match, right? I have to worry about that one, and I'll worry about the rest after that. So I think I have to play Tom, if I'm not mistaken. He's got this weird ass Reno Mage, and kind of a janky lineup. Not gonna lie, I haven't played a single game against that deck, so I'm gonna get out of here and try to figure out how to play against that deck.
Kevin Hamilton for CG Magazine.
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations on another come-from-behind victory. How do you feel about the tightness of your play compared to Uya's in that last match? Would you agree with the assessment of the casters that it might have gone very differently if it not were for some of his late-game plays?
Well, it's kind of hard to have a recap without looking at the VOD, but Dagger Pass seemed weird on one of those turns at the end when I had a Raz on board. I know he had Bone Mirror, but the other cards kind of escaped me. You never win when you pass, so I'm going to call that questionable. If you have any cards, if they're not completely unplayable, I figure you just jam, but I think overall he played that series fine. Like the Zoo game against Druid, he stomped me. Played that game fine, and from what I could tell, from my perspective, today I actually played a much better game than you did yesterday.
You felt like you didn't make any major mistakes yourself?
No, from my end, no. I'd have to relook at all the plays, but from my end, it didn't feel like he missed too much of a beat.
When we spoke to Orange earlier, he was talking about his preparation for the event and like creating spreadsheets and looking at different matchups and stuff like that. He said he worked with you a lot as well, which is why this is kind of interesting to me. So based on your experience here and like the decks you've seen, the various lineups you've seen, and the success of some that may not have appeared to have been good at the start, would you change, if you could go back, would you change anything about your lineup?
It's really hard to tell that, right? To answer that, because so basically how I prepared my lineup is I identified kind of what the global win rates of normal decks are, right? Step 2 is identify my opponents and try to figure out what they're going to play. Make a target metagame. Step 3 is get a computer programmer to run an emulator of what 100,000 Conquest sets look like against one another, right? So I'm very limited by like real decks. I can't go explore and be like, well, someone might play Reno Mage, but in the grand scope of things, I can't prepare for these absurd decks that you've never seen before. So no, I wouldn't change a thing. I'd stick to my hard work and against my expected metagame, which I was not too far off on. I was a 54% favorite in most of my matches with my lineup. So that's 53.5 was about where I had landed on 100,000 simulations. So kind of happy.
Okay. So I've asked this question to a few other pros today, and none of them had a solid answer, and I don't know if you will either. But for some reason today, so many of the matches are being 3-2 reverse sweeps. Is there any specific reason the current meta lends itself to that?
So right before my match, I was watching Old Boy play against
Elgudan,
yeah, that's right, sorry. And basically both players had told me like before their match that it basically just comes down to Warlock Mirror. So both players accidentally had targets on Warlock, and that deck just kind of like struggles to get wins. Globally, it's one of the weaker decks. There's 3 prominent good decks, and the 4th, no matter what you go, if it's kind of like weaker. So they both kind of identify like that one in particular, but I think it's just instance for instance why these games are going to 5 and like why there's reverses. Just usually it's just one of those tier 1 decks getting through, and then I think there's just a roadblock on that 4th deck that everyone had to bring because they all kind of suck.
Ben from Indy, China. We know that you're a known player for a very long time, but it seems that you have somehow disappeared for a while from the competitive scene. But now that you're back, and you're back really strong, and I wonder if it's because of any of your own status, or is it because of the metagame?
No, it's just how much I've been practicing last year. I played I top 8'd the French DreamHack and Tool. I played the first prelims of the year, and that's like the only tournaments I think I did all year. I wasn't enjoying the game, so just didn't play the game. Just kind of streamed casually, and that made me kind of happy, so I didn't really push myself into being competitive. I actually, right before starting practicing for the Americas Championship, or for the prelims to qualify here, just realized I was watching some tournament and realized that everyone just kind of sucks right now. I can do better than that. So I started practicing again every day, 10 hours a day for the last 2 months, and I'm not as good as I used to be, but I'm better than most people.
So, if you don't remember your hand in Boar State at the time, that's a perfectly valid answer, but there were a couple plays in your last game that I wanted to know whether it was just sort of a snap decision, or why you decided to go with the play that you did. The first was going into Coin Ultimate Infestation instead of into the Death Knight Mouth.
Yeah, so I figured he had Bone Mare, and I actually needed to draw exactly Spreading Flag Dukes in there. Soft read. The only way the Malfurion was actually good is if 2 Poisonous Spiders didn't actually die on board. And I figured, well, if they actually just die on board, I can't kill the 6/6 ever. I have to UI and hope to hit Plague, and then stabilize from there.
And the second was when you played the card that gave you the 3 taunt minions into double Doomsayer.
Right. He needs exactly 1 drop Vile Spine Shadow Step, which is, if he has God bless, but he never has that. So that's just always a board clear, basically. It's very hard for him to have a Shadow Step because there's an Edwin on board. Valspawn's very, very much in his range, and then he has to top deck the 1-drop. The 1-drop would have always been played by them, so it's pretty hard for him to have those cards. So it's just like, I just kind of went from there.
So Hearthstone, unlike a lot of other esports, has a much more casual community environment to it, with like the benches up front, people playing their own Hearthstone games. Does that make it easier or more difficult for you to like play on stage in front of that kind of crowd?
I can't really answer that because I'm not a Counter-Strike pro. So.
Ever since you break out to the scene, and you always surprise us with crazy, wacky builds and card choices, and this time, although there are a lot of cards that I would like to ask, but if I have to pick one, that must be Karen Bloodhoof. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so that's currently just the best card in the game. It's just very, very powerful in a lot of matchups, including aggro mirrors and against Priest. So predicted, 16 out of 16 players had Priest. Great matchups. Shaman Mirrors, second one of the most important matchups I thought was going to be in the tournament was Shaman Mirrors. Great card. All these random controls, I figured there would be... so Amisk, Old Boy, both brought like hard control to their last tournament. And you don't go from like playing hard control to being like an aggro player like a month later, basically. So basically I just had a 33% pairing of getting someone probably trying to hard target Shaman. And I figured Shaman was my best 4th deck, and I was going to bring it. So jam a Karen to screw with those people. Same idea as Rogue. Rogue is a bit better, and you can keep in a lot of matchups.
So, one of the things that I was talking with Che about a few hours ago was what he thought distinguished you as a player, and his answer was that you've made a really sizable contribution to the game, both in terms of the community and in terms of playing with some of the best players out there and helping them develop. Is that something that you take pride in, or did you agree with?
Absolutely not. First esports job was with Team Archon. I was assigned to be the coach, and I made sure that we won tournaments. And in my time there, I think we won about 40% of all tournaments between Orange Firebat, Soleil, and myself occasionally. We did very, very well. And then I started competing myself, and it's just, if I accidentally create good for the Hearthstone scene, that's great, but not exactly my primary goal.